Yo, what's going on YouTube, and welcome back to another Destiny video. Now, in today's video, I am going to kick off a 3-part series, all 3 parts of which will run this week, and they are going to be titled Destiny Improvements. We all know that a little while back, Bungie announced that they are already working on Destiny 2, and also we've got DLC pack coming next year, and I imagine there are no doubt going to be other DLC packs as well. So with all of that in mind, and the fact that next year has plenty more stuff to bring, then I figured it would be worth kicking off a series to kind of actually talk about what I feel should be done to Destiny, or what kind of additions would be good that would drastically improve the game. And a lot of these aren't even that drastic. They don't have to be things like, oh, I now suddenly want to jump in my spaceship and fly freely around the entire world. No, these are just kind of simple things that can be put in place that would massively improve both my and your Destiny playing experience. So, I'm going to split this into 3 videos. Today focuses on storage, and that's more than just, please give me more bank space. But today focuses on storage. The next video, part 2, will focus on items, gear, weapons, all that kind of stuff like that. And part 3 will focus on new gameplay mechanics and things like that. So, they are your 3 parts. Today is items, but make sure you tune back later this week for parts 2 and 3. So let's kick things off. First and foremost, yes, I am still going to say it, I'm going to get it out of the way, yes, we need more storage space. Everybody says it, you look through your bank, you'll see that, in the right hand side you've got your items and materials, that's normally always full, then the middle section you've got your weapons, and the left section you have your armor. This is all shared between all 3 of your characters, which is a great idea because it does allow you to share items between characters, but at the same time it's annoying because then it means that you can't even use another character as a proper mule because their bank is your bank. So, yes, first and foremost, we need more storage. Much more storage. However, in line with this, to make things slightly better, I believe that emblems and shaders should not take up bank space. See, if you look at something like Guild Wars 2, for example, you open up the menu in that, and then you have a kind of die section for your armor, but these dies do not take up space in your inventory. They do the first time you pick them up, but then once you've used them, they get added to this kind of color palette, and you can then just tweak your items as and when you please. So if you extended that to Destiny and had it so that anytime you use or you acquire an emblem and you acquire a shader, then it can just go into this sort of library palette that you can select from, but doesn't actually physically take up space. That would be really handy because already half of my item space is just with shaders, plus all my 3 characters are carrying bunches of different shaders so that way they can hold everything they need. So that would be extremely useful, but let me kind of dial it back for a second because that's probably not the most important thing at the forefront of your mind. I imagine what's slightly more important is access to your items. So I think what they should also do, or what would be really good, would be if your ships had a mini storage compartment. Now I'm not saying that your ship has to have access to your entire bank because I respect that if you did that, people will probably never go back to the tower unless they're collecting bounties or going to buy things. So what I would propose would be that your ship can carry, say, 1 full set of armor, so that would then mean 5 slots for a set of gear, and then potentially an extra 3 slots for your weapons, so you can carry 1 primary, 1 secondary, and 1 heavy. Now don't get me wrong, I would quite happily embrace even more space, but I do respect that this may not be, Bungie's intention for the ship, so at least if you had limited storage, it would still give you a little bit more freedom to move. And it would also make your ships a hell of a lot more useful. In fact, just useful in general, because right now it does little more than make my loading screen look pretty. Then on top of that, and this is quite possibly one of the biggest points I want to make here, loadouts. This could be massive. What I mean by that is, if you have multiple characters, for example, I have 3 hunters. One of them is level 32, one of them is level 30, and one of them is level 20. Now, the reason for this is so that I can run the Nightfall and the Raid and the kind of Heroics 3 times a week, but also it means that when I'm trying to get something like Raid gear, I can get Raid gear that much sooner than if I had, say, 1 Hunter, 1 Titan, and 1 Warlock, because I'm only working towards 1 set. So, when I want to do this, I will complete the Raid with 1 character, I then go back to the tower, I take all my armor off, I put it in the bank, I then go and select my next character, I go to the tower again, I equip that armor, and I then go back to do the raid, go and repeat the process, go back to the tower, drop the armor off, get my 3rd character, pick it back up, and as you can see, that's a lot of trips to and from the tower. And it's even worse if I forget to pick something up and then I have to then go and reload a character, drop off the extra item I forgot, and all that stuff. So you can see it's a real pain in the backside. Now what could be cool on the other hand would be if you had loadouts. Now, I'm going to split this into sort of 2 sections. One would be cross-character loadouts, and one would be character-specific loadouts. So for example, in its simplest application, let's say you have a weapon setup for PvP and a weapon setup for PvE. Or perhaps maybe you've got a couple of them. Let's say you have a weapon setup for when you're in the Vault of Glass, and then a separate setup for when you're in Crota's End. So for example, my Vault of Glass might be Atheon's Epilogue Primary, for secondary it might be my Icebreaker, and for my heavy it might be my Heads and Vengeance. Then I go over to Crota's End, and then I simply hit a button, switch my loadout, and then I've got Fatebringer equipped, I've got, say, Patience and Time equipped, and I might have something like, I don't know, the Song of Ear heavy machine gun equipment. I can switch between them on the fly. I mean, I appreciate it doesn't take me that long to press start and switch my weapon, switch this and switch that. But it is still a simple application that does allow me to kind of like juggle things and switch on the fly, which is extremely useful. Or for example, if you're jumping between, you know, like maybe you've got a solo setup, an arc setup and a void setup, that could be really useful. If you then improve that and tie that to your bank, that would be even better. If you were actually able to kind of be in a mission and be like, right, I want my solo setup right now, and then for example your icebreaker and maybe your vision of confluence is actually in your bank, which you would therefore normally have to go back. But instead, if you enable the loadout and it links directly to your bank and you swap items like that, then that would be awesome. That would be powerful, and therefore you could leave a lot more in your bank, customize setups to suit yourself, and never have to worry about having to travel back through that loading screen to orbit, through another loading screen to the tower, through another loading screen back to orbit, and another loading screen back to the world. Then if we're really going to shoot for the stars, I would say this should adopt across characters. So if you have a character, for example, that's holding some gear, but then you want to go to your other character and you want to enable a setup whereby, again, you have, say, like a solo setup, so an icebreaker, vision of confluence, Hez and vengeance, things like that. If you then activate that on that character, it will then drag all the armor and equip it to your character. Now, I do appreciate this would need to work in the right kind of way, so it probably wouldn't be able to drag armor off a character that's already wearing it. So I think, for the time being, you would need to deposit your armor. But that being said, I wouldn't mind doing that. If it was a case of enabling setups for my other characters, I would quite happily just leave stuff lying around in the bank, so then all three characters could pull and choose from it as and when they please. And with that, that draws this video to a close. So just as a quick summary, this video is dedicated to improvements to storage. So first and foremost, we want more bank space. Secondly, emblems and shaders should not take up bank space. Thirdly, we should enable ships to actually be useful and at least have a small portion of storage that you could then use to kind of like leave things in and then switch on the fly. And finally, the ability to save loadouts so that you can switch gear on the fly whenever you need to, and then you can build different setups to suit different playstyles. And there you have it. That is it for episode 1 of Destiny Improvements. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to smash that like button down below, hit the thumbs up, show your support, it does really help us out, and also don't forget to subscribe for daily gaming videos. Also, drop a comment down below and let me know what you think of some of these ideas. Do you think these would be really cool improvements, or do you have your own idea for sort of like how you could further improve storage? Either way, drop your comments down below, and thank you very much for watching. Take it easy, catch you next time, peace out.